His true high school coming-of-age story, his journey embracing his blackness despite resistance from many, including his white adoptive parents.
I know my parents love me, but there were still very problematic things that I went through. I think it was important to show that, no, this can happen in your own home, and how we move forward collectively while addressing the racism that is being perpetuated.
Colin Kaepernick is being used by people who want to destroy America to divide us based on race. So Colin Kaepernick has a new comic book or some kind of book coming out for children, and in it he talks about how his parents were racist towards him, how he's a victim of racism and systemic inequality, the same things he's been saying. But it's so funny that when you listen to this interview, you will see that it appears to me that Colin Kaepernick is actually being used, that he's a tool being used by the very people that want to divide us based on race.
Kaepernick has got a powerful message for younger people in his new book. He says, stand up for what you believe in. Now, this comes almost 7 years after the former San Francisco 49ers quarterback started taking a knee during the national anthem to protest racial injustice and police brutality. His new young adult book is called Colin Kaepernick, Change the Game.
And it's so funny, he calls it Change the Game. Now, if Colin Kaepernick was really, really good back in 2016 before he started taking a knee, I think this story would have turned out differently.
Details of his coming-of-age journey and his introduction to activism in high school.
Activism in high school, if you look at this, Colin Kaepernick wasn't an activist in college or when he made it to the pros, when he led the 49ers to the Super Bowl. It's only when things started going downhill for him as a quarterback that he became this quote-unquote activist.
Adriana Diaz sat down with Kaepernick at a Chicago bookstore for his only TV interview about this book.
Please welcome Colin Kaepernick.
The offseason for Colin Kaepernick looks much different these days. The 35-year-old has a nonprofit.
You're already creating community.
Empowering Black and brown youth, a publishing company, and media projects, including a docuseries on Netflix and an upcoming documentary with director Spike Lee. He's also a new father who's spreading a message of empowerment in his new graphic novel, Change the Game, written with author and University of Chicago professor Eve L. Ewing.
I love how you depict yourself in this book, not as some big shot hero, but as a shy, insecure high schooler like we all were. I mean, I'm speaking for you, but.
yeah, no, absolutely.
It's so funny that when you have guys like Colin Kaepernick, who, in my opinion, does not really want to be the face of quote-unquote anti-whiteness or anti-racism, he's being undergirded and lifted up by Black women. That he's fallen into the matriarchal pattern that happens to a lot of people growing up in the Black community. That it takes a Black woman to give the person spine, to prop this person up.
Growing up, I think still am a pretty introverted person. I hope it's true to form, and that's just kind of how I navigate the world.
It's his true high school coming-of-age story, his journey embracing his blackness despite resistance from many, including his white adoptive parents.
Why does everything have to be race? See, that's why I say he's being used by those who want to destroy us and divide us based on race. Everything is racially motivated.
I know my parents love me, but there were still very problematic things that I went through. I think it was important to show that, no, this can happen in your own home, and how we move forward collectively while addressing the racism that is being perpetuated.
He took cues from his icon, basketball star Allen Iverson, who he said wore his blackness like a suit of armor.
Now, full disclosure, I'm a big fan of AI. I came up around the same time as AI, and he was a guy that I admired and respected. But just because he wore baggy pants and wore cornrows, that means you're Black? Is that the case? That if you speak intelligently and you don't wear cornrows and you don't wear baggy pants, that means you're acting white?
And teenage Kaepernick wanted cornrows to match. He's getting what roles, his mom asked?
Oh, your hair's not professional. Oh, you look like a little thug.
Your mom said that to you.
Yeah. And those become spaces where it's like, okay, how do I navigate this situation now? But it also is informed why I have my hair long today.
See, to me, it's like selective outrage. Like Chris Rock said about Will Smith. Because when you look at prior videos of Colin Kaepernick when he was with the 49ers, he did not have cornrows.
Close to my heart.
Heidi Russo lives in the Rockies. Her birth son lives in the Bay Area. He's the Super Bowl quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. She gave up her son when she wound up pregnant at 19 in Milwaukee.
He was born in 1987, and I took care of him for 6 weeks, and then was fortunate enough and blessed with Rick and Teresa, who adopted him.
Rick and Teresa Kaepernick had 2 kids, lost 2 others to heart disease, and then found Colin.
It is the toughest decision I've ever made, but for him, it was the right decision. For me personally, I was in a situation that wasn't planned. Certainly I wasn't in a position to give Colin the life that I wanted him to have.
At age 4, the Kaepernicks moved to California, where Rick had a chance to help mold Colin into a 12-letter high schooler. While Colin Kaepernick's mom says she has always been one of his biggest fans, she wants to be clear that she's not simply jumping on his bandwagon now because of his newfound success.
That's never been the case.
Heidi says she kept in touch through the years with Teresa and Rick, but that contact kind of put her life on hold.
I couldn't move forward with my life. I would wait for her letters. I'd wait for a lot of things, pictures. It was really hard. His whole life, I thought about him, every birthday, you think about him. You don't just forget.
While the Kaepernicks watched Colin grow into manhood, she too is super proud.
Yeah, incredibly proud.
So that's why I say that he's being utilized as a tool to divide us based on race. So he is being a victim. Wow, I despise victimization, I really do. They're using him, they're victimizing him in order to further demonstrate that America is systemically racist, to further inflate the idea that America is full of racist tropes, that everything is systemically racist and needs to be torn down and rebuilt. They're using his example. He's a biracial person being raised in a white household, and that those white people that adopted him, even though they adopted him out of love, knowing that he was biracial, they have these racial stereotypes that they were projecting on him, and he had to deal with that growing up. Now, it's funny, you never heard about these things when he was playing early on with the 49ers. When he gave interviews and talked about his family. As a matter of fact, just about 4 years ago when he gave an interview with his mom, he talked about how much he loved his mom, and his mom talked about how much she loved him.
You have a family that you love, but you don't look like. And at a young age, I understood that was different. I didn't understand what that meant. So as I got older, it was something that developed, and as my identity developed and my place in society and my understanding of that developed, my parents and my family had to develop as well. And I think that's just been a constant journey for us. But it's been one that we've worked through, and we've always been very loving in the process. And, I wouldn't do it with anybody else.
So that's why I say he's a tool being used to divide us based on race.
The grown-up version of Eve wanted to go back in time and give young Colin a lot of hugs.
And it's always seemed like black women have to come in and save black men. That should not be the case. No, in a biblical family, it's the man, it's the woman, it's the child. The man is the one that's strong, that's the covering for the entire family. The woman is there to help, to support. They partner together. But the man does not need the woman to come in and save him.
And I was really moved and saddened by the level of kind of self-awareness that he had to develop at a very young age without a lot of guidance.
The former NFL quarterback who once led the 49ers to the Super Bowl was known in high school for his baseball. The pitcher even had major league interest, but he bucked public pressure and followed his heart to the gridiron.
There were a lot more black people in football. I was like, I found some community here.
You know what? I'm happy that Colin Kaepernick has found his blackness, has found his voice. I really am. But I'm discouraged because he's using it to divide us based on race. That's the unfortunate thing. If he'll use his voice to really empower black people and not talk about how America is systemically racist, but actually use it to provide opportunity for black people, to elevate black people in their minds so they're not blaming other people for their state in life, for their lot in life, I would support Colin Kaepernick, but he's being used to divide us based on race.